without further ado, I'll introduce Thomas, who is the co-producer and moderator of our discussions, and then he'll introduce everybody else. So, Thomas?
Yes. So thank you, Gage, for kind of giving us a little bit of the rundown. We have 4 great panelists here from different backgrounds that will be discussing with us essentially what's been going on in society in regards to pride and activism. So if any of you guys would like to begin with introducing yourselves, we'll get started with the topic after that.
Well, I'll go first. I'm Sky, 25, birthdays in about 30 days, so was super excited for it, but I don't know what's gonna happen, everything going on. And emotions have just been really up and down for me. Been working from home, been doing a lot of online shopping, online retail therapy. But yeah, just picking back off, the topic of pride and what it means to me, and just, reflecting on reevaluating the definition, because we look at pride as LGBT, but I think now people are really looking at it more inclusively. So we're talking about Black pride, trans pride, Mexican pride. So it's just good that people are bringing that topic to discussion and having more open dialogue about it. So that's good. So.
Thank you, Sky. Laura?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Laura. I work with Gage, and in my day job, I am a graphic designer, creative type. Kind of the same as Sky, doing a lot of retail therapy, doing a lot of internal looking in during all this while we're working from home. Looking into not only figuring out myself a little bit better, working out a little bit more, but also looking at how I can help support what's kind of going on in the world, even what little piece I can contribute, looking at that. And also during Pride Month, how that changes. I do agree with Sky that we are looking at it more inclusively of, hey, everyone, y'all means all. So I definitely agree that we're moving in the right steps to go forward as a better society. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thank y'all for inviting me.
Thank you. KB?
Hello, I am KB. I'm 26 years old. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I am biracial, so everything going on has been kind of a nutcase for me. Living with, white parents, but having other biracial siblings, and then going to a predominantly Black school, and then going to a predominantly white school in college. It's been very difficult, I guess, hearing other people's views about everything, but it's been really challenging, very, very much so a learning experience. And I agree with Sky and Laura on just what pride actually means now to people. And it's not just a general term for the LGBT, okay, you guys got me, community. It's definitely getting more in depth, and I love that people are stepping up and taking those actions to support, specific lives that do matter. And yes, all lives matter, and I that whole saying. But it's a troubling time for minorities, and hopefully this is the change that we need to see.
Thank you. And Lewis?
Yeah, my name is Louis Hintz. I live here in Dallas. I've lived here for about 1.5 years now. I'm 22 years old, and just been doing, yeah, a lot of chilling at home. I have a puppy, so I've been playing with him a lot. But yeah, this month has been very interesting. All my family lives back up in Chicago, and I have biracial siblings and Black siblings. And so it's definitely been a weird just month trying to support them and to just like care for them from afar during all this quarantine and everything like that. So it's definitely been just an interesting month on still wanting to celebrate Pride and still wanting to fight for this activism and stand up for those who don't have people to stand up for them. So it's just been an interesting month, but I am yeah, just super happy to be here and excited to talk about this with all the other panelists.
Thank you. So let's just get into it, because I know we're all, you know, there's a lot of things to cover, and there's a lot of us here too as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between Pride last year and Pride this year. You know, the criticism that a lot of people gave about Pride last year is that it was very commercialized. A lot of brands were running to push and market their solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community. And this year, it has sort of transitioned more into a very active Pride. So does anybody want to start on maybe their feelings or experiences or comparisons from last year's Pride to this year's Pride, and why is it, you know, why is this one so important for the community at large? Feel free, anybody, to just jump in.
I can at least speak on last year's Pride. I'm still kind of digesting how corporate and big societies have tackled this year's Pride, because I haven't seen too much of it. But I can speak at least at seeing how last year's Pride, definitely I can agree that there's a lot of scrutiny on the corporations of, hey, where's your money going? Are you a Chick-fil-A, or are you somebody who's actually caring about the community and you're putting your money where your mouth is? And having the pleasure of going to the San Francisco Pride last year and witnessing some of the protests that actually stopped. I think it was Google employees who actually stopped it. But going and seeing that, I don't know if that would happen today. I think we're kind of shifted in our focus, which is completely fine, and I'm totally supportive of that. I think Pride Month, in my eyes, it's kind of been a little bit more dialed back this year, just because we're focusing our efforts on other places, totally deserving of that. And I think having both marginalized communities, we're willing to say, yep, we were there once, we still kind of are there. Let's help out our brothers and sisters on this side of things. We can celebrate later, we can celebrate in our own ways, stuff like that. That's kind of what I've seen as a contrast of, hey, we were doing it, yeah, these corporate companies might be putting some money down, but not really showing it all the way. And then this year, I haven't seen too many of the logos shift as much, and if I have, it's been very late in the month. So it's definitely a contrast of the companies. It's almost like they seem like they forgot about Pride because of all the protests going on. Which, okay, if they're focusing on the protest and they're actually putting their money where their mouth is for the protest, great, let them do it.
Anybody else want to add?
Yeah, and then also, you know, of course, COVID-19, maybe that has, you know, somewhat of an effect of why we haven't seen, because, you know, like H&M, they come out with a Pride collection just about every year now. Target, I haven't really seen anything from them this year. So I don't know if COVID, you know, kind of contributed to, and just like a whole as a country, like things have just been kind of like, you know, very like simmered down, not as high energy because of what we're going through. So maybe that's a factor as to why Pride isn't so, you know, big like last year. I really can't speak on last year because I didn't really participate or pay attention that much last year for some reason, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, Thomas, I'll add a quick thing. I think something to note about this year versus last year is I think as quiet as things have maybe seemed in comparison to other years, and we've talked about the commercialization of Pride, Pride festivities themselves, everything that goes through all of that. You're talking New York City, San Francisco, Dallas, those types of places. I think without all of those things, Pride just seems almost a little more wholesome this year than last year. Amongst the other things that are happening in the world, Pride in general, it's almost like we're realizing that we don't have to have shoes with rainbows on them, right? We don't have to have Target blasting all of these LGBTQ representative items, and although those things are great, and you know, we all love them and we all buy them, and hopefully a lot of that money goes to support good causes. We recognize that Pride is here. You know, Pride is here with all of us as a whole, and maybe we can't be together, but we're finding ways around that. And so I think that's kind of an important piece to call out, kind of that wholesomeness of this year in kind of the silence, you know.
And I will say, you know, to be fair, because I know, you know, we are being viewed by different groups. There are organizations out there that have been, I guess you'd say this is more of like a woke pride, if that could be labeled anything. And I've seen a lot of organizations educating a lot of people on make a lot of figures, especially people of color within the LGBTQ community, that have been very impactful. Anyone from Marsha P. Johnson to Sylvia Rivera. You know, people are reminded of people like Harvey Milk. James Baldwin has been quoted a lot in the past few weeks too as well. And I see a lot of companies making the shift of sort of reminding everyone that, you know, this is a struggle that we've all kind of been in through different experiences. But we want to move on to the next question too as well. And what is Pride to you guys? You can either answer as individuals, or you can answer from your subgroup that you identify as. But what is Pride to you? And also, do you guys feel that it has a different meaning this year personally to you? I know we covered that in the last part of, you know, with everything going on, but does Pride have a different meaning to any of you guys this year personally?
I think for me it does. I didn't go to Pride last year, well, in Fort Worth or Dallas. But this year I just feel like with everything that is going on, COVID, you know, this is probably the first year that I've ever seen like my college like be in full support of Pride. And I've noticed a lot of colleges have been doing that, especially with their athletic programs. And for me, it's just I'm just proud. Like, I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to call, you know, you guys like family, and to be able to have those conversations. And I think a lot of people are open to have those conversations now with everything that has been going on. And even though some of those conversations can be uncomfortable, the fact that like I don't feel like I need the approval from anybody to be who I am and be who I want to be. And I think that's like the biggest thing that has really like made Pride be Pride for me.
Cool. And I know that there's a lot of things going on within Pride of where we've talked, or you guys mentioned before, of are you guys familiar with intersectionality in terms of where, like, you know, you identify as two things occurring at the same time? So for example, Skylar or KB, because you guys are both people of color and also LGBT, or identify as people within the LGBTQ plus community, this is a very interesting time for you guys too as well, because it does seem as though that the focus within the community has been spotlighted on people of color, whether it be advocating for Black trans lives, more inclusion of people too as well. Have you felt like that the with this spotlight, have you felt like people were moving in a more positive direction of true inclusion, or do you feel that currently right now it's just we're kind of playing to the audience? And I don't mean that as being disrespectful. I'm just asking from your experience.
Yeah, like for me, pride to me has always been like Black pride. That's like number one for me. I'm Black before I'm gay. So it's Black pride, you know, of course, gay pride for me as well. But I feel like this year it's like a weight has just kind of been lifted off my shoulders, because it's like, okay, now there's so many more people seeing what we've been experiencing for so long. And okay, you can't call me crazy anymore, because George Floyd, that was filmed. There's some Ahmed, I can't pronounce his name, but Ahmad, the guy that got shot in Georgia.
Yeah.
Ahmaud
Aubrey,
Arbery.
yeah.
Shot and filmed. So this for us isn't new. It's not new for us. It's just being filmed. And you guys are, now people are now starting to see, like I said, what we've been experiencing. So yeah. So it's just been, yeah, for me, it's just been really just rocky and emotions high. But I feel like I've been using my emotions in the right way, with kind of like speaking out more, where usually I am a little bit more reserved, and I do kind of, you know, keep my thoughts to myself. But this year it's just been like, okay, I just need to, you know, I need to say my part and say how, you know, I feel. So yeah.
KB, do you have anything to add, or would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, I live in both sides of it, you know. I am half white, I am half African American. It's been it's hurt to see. I've been told I'm not white enough, or I've been told I'm not Black enough. But like at the end of the day, I'm a colored person, and I'm considered that. And even, you know, I remember my mom, who I grew up with two white parents. We go to the doctor, and you had to sign on the appointment sheet, you know, what's your ethnicity, and there was not an other when I was a kid. You were either Black or you were white. And so I don't know, just stuff like that, you know, stuff that I really didn't think was something. Now I just see it, and like my Black brothers and sisters are hurting. I'm hurting. That doesn't make me any less of, you know, a person than them. And even, you know, I just hate how all this has turned into a right and left story, when it's really the amount of killing cops are doing to African Americans and minorities. I think I read a statistic where we're getting killed at a 24, Black people are getting killed at a 24% higher rate than white people, and white people was at like an 8%. It's just really frustrating, and to see like the true color of some people in this world has really like upset me, for sure.
And Lou, I know that you come, you know, similar to KB of being in an interracial family. How has that been for you, having siblings? I know that you're the oldest, correct, on your side, and you have younger siblings that are African American, or I'm sorry, Black. that how's that been for you in this scope of, you know, engagement within your family? Has there been a lot of dialogue with your younger siblings? You said you're offering more of a support, you've been more of in a supportive space for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm the oldest out of 10. And so there's a lot of young ones in the family. And so it's just been, trying to be supportive of them and letting them know that they're loved. And then I've come from a pretty conservative family. And so some of our other relatives that they just don't see just the problems that are going on, and they have lots of questions about, oh, why are there protests? Like, just saying lots of things that just don't sound educated. And so it's been just a lot of trying to just have these simple conversations with them, talking about the injustices that are going on, and just explaining that, like, if you don't stand up for your family, it's not even just standing up for like the siblings that I have, it's standing up for their family, for their friends, for their people of color. So it's just been very interesting to kind of I'm still obviously in Dallas, and all my family's either in Chicago or in Wisconsin. So just kind of having those Facebook messages or calling them up and texting them. And then just a couple of weeks ago, actually, a couple of my siblings had the chance to drive on down here to Texas. We got to spend some time together. So that was really good, just to be with them and just to let them know that they're loved, they're beautiful, they're awesome, and they're going to change the world. So just encouraging them and letting them know they're loved.
Laura, as you being a part of the corporate environment, do you have anything that you would like to add in terms of your experience, especially at the fact that you work, with several boards within your company? Has it been a lot of open dialogue? Where do you feel like your space has been within all this too as well?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the company I work for. Had it been 2 years ago, I don't think I'd be the same. We just had a transition of a CEO who has come in and been very open to the change, to the dialogue that is happening out in real world, not just, hey, this is corporate America, we're going to have it this way. You can go home and do whatever you want. I think it was a week after, if not 2 weeks after, no less, after George Floyd, he had an all hands call, and we're global in Europe and Canada, but he had an all hands call and said, hey, and this guy is a older white man, corporate society, but he still had a call just saying, hey, I'm upset. I want some sort of change. I want you to know that I'm upset. I want you to know that I'm feeling for our African American employees. I want you to feel safe and open to have a conversation here at work. I want you to know that I care for you. I want you to stand up for what you believe in. Kind of not beating around the bush of actively saying go out and protest, but saying, hey, if that's what you want to do it, but be safe. So I felt very proud in the fact that my CEO of my company and Gage's company as well was actively saying that. We've had a lot of support in him as well for Pride Month. Our previous CEO hardly ever mentioned it. He came out and was vocal about it. This is our first year as a Fortune 7 company to have a rainbow logo, which it's no big deal to anyone else, but for me to have a hand in designing it and being a part of it, that's huge. Things like that probably anyone off the streets, anyone probably even working there, would care less about. But those little things speak so much, I'm sure, to me and everyone else in the community that says, hey, somebody's listening, somebody cares about me. And that I can't speak for the rest of corporate America because I'm sure it's not the same, but at least where I work, it's a very loving situation. So it allows for us to be able to go out and say, hey, I want to spread this love too. I want to help out where I can. I want to be able to show my support, show that, hey, this world is not all it's cracked up to be, but I want to help make it better.
Awesome. Now, we want to transition over to activism with all you guys. So essentially, as you guys have known, the Black Lives Matter movement has been very prevalent over the past several months, being essentially initiated by the incident with George Floyd. Now, while we are also engaging a lot of social change, there's also been active restrictions put on the LGBTQ community via the trans community, as well as there's been some great victories with the Supreme Court passing a ruling that you cannot discriminate people within the LGBTQ community within their job scope and things along those lines. Does anybody want to add to that? Because it seems as though while we're all marching towards progress, it seems as though we're all trying to tackle a universe of so many different issues at the same time. And I know for a lot of people, you know, it feels like we're all fighting this big, this kind of like, I wouldn't say social war, but it is kind of like a war where you're like, we're focused on this, and then we see something else happen. So everybody starts directing another direction. But we do have some positive things happening too as well with, like I said, the victory with the Supreme Court. So does anybody want to touch on that as well as with the intersectionality of this activism and in regards of how, you know, we're seeing Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ activism sort of blur in together at the same time with flags and information and content and things along those lines?
I think there's obviously still a ways to go with all of the just things that the Black Lives Matter community is trying to accomplish. But I think it's been cool to see like a lot of the Confederate statues that should have been torn down years ago, to see those come down and to see these like just pillars of oppression start to come down, which I think is just really cool to see those results already happening from these protests. But obviously there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I think it sets things up, and unfortunately, the Black Lives Matter movement has kind of been doing the grunt work because they've been kind of in working underground and behind the scenes for the most part, because they don't get the media since 2013. But I think they're doing a lot of the work that is now in the forefront, and I think, yes, LGBTQ members were fighting too. Our fight is big. I won't compare them. It's not who's trying to get in last place and who's trying to get in first place. But I do admire the fact that we're now coming together and saying, hey, I understand you. I've been here in your shoes before. I understand you. I want to help you out. I've seen a little bit of resentment of hey, this is my battle, not your battle. But for the most part, it's been, hey, I know where you're at. Let me help you. I want to help. I want to do whatever I can to support you. And same, me being Native American, I see it the same way as like the Confederate flag or Confederate statues. I see that of kind of a little like guerrilla technique with the Columbus statues too. So I see that technique going and just inciting more like smaller movements that have always been there, but they're always growing and have more voice now because they see the Black Lives Matter movement getting so much traction.
Yeah, piggyback off Laura. Ever since, you know, the George Floyd thing happened, literally like a week or two later, I'm seeing, you know, issues being brought up that's happening. I can't remember the country's name. I think it's Libya, or where there's just underprivileged
Yemen.
kids out there. And then like, thank you. And then Yemen, yes. And then, you know, Black trans lives and kids in ICE. So it's just kind of like this trickling effect I'm noticing. But as Laura stated, you know, it's all started with Black lives, and they are doing, you know, a lot of the work. And if it wasn't for that movement, I wouldn't know about all these other things that are happening in the world. The world is just messed up. So, and like Thomas said, okay, we're focusing on this issue here. Okay, now this issue needs, you know, attention. So everybody's mind is just everywhere right now. So, but yeah.
KB, do you have anything you want to add?
I do not.
Okay, no worries. No worries at all. So, you know, we've talked about activism, we've talked about pride. What do you guys feel like your role is currently in this moment of history? I think a lot of people, the universal question is, where do I fit in? What is my role? There's so many things happening, regardless of what your viewpoint may be, regardless of what position you may find yourself in. But where do you feel like your personal role is in this vacuum or this space of history? Does anybody want to answer that?
I guess I can take a stab. I guess I've had that conversation a lot. Being white and Native American, and largely passing for white, I see the need to kind of stand up more. I was complicit for a long time of just being silent, saying, yeah, I'm not racist. I support my Black friends. I support the movement. I support everything, but not being vocal about it. And so I feel like now coming into it, and I'm sure a lot of other white people are the same way, of coming in and saying, hey, I support it. I agree with it. I'm not racist. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to vocalize it. I feel like even as small as it is, I need to have some sort of voice to come in and help out in some sort of way. And that's the least I can do in that regard.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
I know it's a pretty heavy question that I just said, what is your space in all this? But, you know, feel free to answer however you feel like is the most comfortable for you. I know some people, you know, they've either been donating, a lot of people just been listening, a lot of people have either been protesting, people have been just being supportive. You know, everybody's just trying to fill in different spaces, you know, throughout, not just with Black Lives Matter, but also with, you know, other marginalized groups. We're all being educated, you know, in this process. Some of us, you know, me personally, I can say that I've screwed the pooch a couple times in some of the things that I've said, you know, and I had to go back and learn. But all this is a learning process. So, anybody else want to add anything on top of that?
Yeah,
I
Tom,
would agree. Oh,
go ahead.
I agree with you. I've even had to just educate myself too. I like the saying, you know, yes, all lives matter, but when your neighbor's house is on fire, the fire department isn't gonna go and water your house first when your house isn't on fire. That kind of like really hit me. I protested 2 days in Fort Worth. It was very peaceful, very, you know, educational. And my biggest thing is I'm not gonna sit back. I have been, you know, complacent and not really been active until this year, which is kind of very sad to say. But I'm done doing that now, and I'm gonna do my part and be me and be proud to be me and support whoever needs help when it's somebody else's battle to fight too. We're all human. You know, I'm a believer in Christ, and we're all supposed to love our neighbors.
Gage, I know you wanted to say something also.
Yeah, no, I think that you made, you know, two kind of good points. I mean, you asked what we felt like our role as being an activist is, what that looks like. And then you also brought up how everyone is kind of doing things a little differently. As an activist for the LGBTQ community, and not that I'm not an activist for others, but that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. You know, you and I have this speaking series. Laura, you know, her and I work for the same company, and we are both on the boards for our LGBTQ employee resource group, and we spend countless hours, she can attest to this, you know, trying to make sure that we have an inclusive environment in our corporate world. And then we do it on our own as well. You know, and so that's always been my focus. But obviously when you're an activist for one fight, you're kind of an activist for all fights. But I don't think that your activism has to look exactly the same in those different environments. And I think that it's important for others to recognize that, right? You mentioned some people are donating, some people are out in the streets with signs, some people are having conversations with their families. Some people are having conversations with themselves. Some people are being silent and listening because they're not educated. And so I think that's really important for, it's kind of like activists helping other activists, right? As an activist, you shouldn't, and I'm gonna use the word judge, and I don't know that that's the best word, but you shouldn't judge other people for how they are being activists, right? Because you don't necessarily know what fight they're fighting. Again, we all have family that might be different, and so we have to have those conversations, or maybe we're not educated enough, so on and so forth. So I think that's just something important to remember, is that we all fight fights a little bit differently, and I think that different fights that we fight may look differently. We all have different backgrounds. Some things are just a little more prevalent in our hearts than others, and some things we just don't know enough about to say things. You know, you're not going to go teach a class about astronomy if you don't know anything about astronomy. So I think knowing where your voice matters and is important, it is crucial in activism.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add before we take questions from the from our viewers as we continue forward, and or also asking each other questions too as well? Anybody else want to wrap this part up?
I think y'all nailed it.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll take questions now from those that are viewing as well. And if you do, feel free to write in the chat box your questions, and then we will answer them. If you want to ask someone directly, feel free to as well. If not, we'll just continue the conversation until you guys decide that you guys want to ask us questions.
Yep, so just for everyone on the call, there is a Q&A button, should be at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to post your questions in there, and then we'll facilitate that way. So we do have a question. Do you think this year more companies are considering internally how they actually bring about equality within their work environment for their employees with varying needs?
I can maybe answer that. I do know that over the past few weeks, I've been reached. A lot of people have communicated with me from different companies, looking to really try to do the process of inclusion, having discussions, figuring out new ways to engage people, not with just the Black community, but also a lot of companies, like Laura said, are taking notice of Pride. Being very direct in terms of what their intentions are. So, there is a lot of companies trying to make the moves. I heard a good quote the other day that says, inclusion is, diversity is being invited to the dance, and inclusion means actually being asked to dance. So, for every company, it's different. A lot of companies are trying to figure out what this new way of doing their own individual business is, but the hope is that a lot of companies will be more open, reflecting people of women, people of color, people that identify as LGBTQ, without feeling like there is some type of I wouldn't say retaliation, but open obstacles for them to move up. The goal is that we would like to see people of all different backgrounds, from mid-management all the way to C-suite, within a lot of these corporations too, and being able to feel like they're represented and heard. So I've been seeing that a lot happen with a lot of companies and a lot of other people that have experience, whether they be social activists, lawyers, and stuff like that, have all been communicated with those same intentions from a lot of members of the corporate world, asking, how do they navigate this area? What's the best way to engage these conversations? Because truth be told, some of these CEOs don't know how to have these conversations with a lot of their staff without, looking a certain way. So a lot of them are trying to figure out what's the right way or what's the right dialogue to be initiated in that theater.
I work for Louis Vuitton, and just this past month, we've had about 3 or 4 inclusion and diversity Zoom meetings, which is, it's, a step in the right direction. They've donated to NAACP. they even got Virgil, I don't know if I'm sure Thomas is familiar with Virgil Abloh. He hopped on a Skype call with us and, discussing what we can do internally to kind of fix things. So I think, like we've been saying, like the companies are looking internally first before, showing it to the world. Like we need to fix ourselves first before we try to tell other people, how to live or what to do. So, yeah.
And we've been seeing that too at McKesson, where Gage and I work. I don't know how, I know some companies have employee resource groups, but that, like he mentioned, us having an LGBTQ one, we have a African American one, we have a women's one, we have military, we have Asian American, we have a bunch of ERGs that have always been there. This year we're very much more in the spotlight, and in particular the African American ERG, wanting to get their opinions on things, wanting to get their feedback. And like I said, our CEO is leaning on them quite heavily to say, hey, what can we do to bring more equality and openness to the workspace? And then what can we do? And they're actually putting some actions in place to they understand and they acknowledge, hey, our C-suite is all old white guys. We need to do better at getting females up there, and we need to do better at getting some diverse candidates up there. So here's our action plan on doing that. So I think there's definitely some eyes opening up to that. I also think in terms of just employee training, people are opening up to that. And I know Gage and I, we put together a mini series on just common LGBTQ terms, like short 3 to 5 minute videos, and got those published this month, which you would think that going over and discussing coming out and how to come out and how to be an ally when somebody comes out to you, or what does LGBTQIA mean, those wouldn't be big issues, but a lot of people don't know those common terms and the common things. How do you be a better ally? Stuff like that, that we're kind of just starting from the ground level up and getting those trainings. And I think we're going to have to do that with a lot of the African American type nature and educating on the culture as we can kind of see. I know I'm doing a lot of education, a lot of watching documentaries. I'm more visual, so I just was bawling my eyes out with Pose. If anyone watches that, go watch it. I love it. But go doing things like that to help out and get a better and more inclusive workspace.
Thank you. I know we have some more questions. Gage, do you want to take the next one?
Yep. So the next question we have is, do you think someone can truly be an activist if they are not working towards progress on all fronts? Example being very visible for pride, but not showing up for the BLM movements.
Does anybody want to tackle that? I mean, I'm just the moderator, but I mean, I do the social activism thing, but does anybody want to tackle that?
What was the beginning part of the question?
Yep. It says, do you think someone can truly be an activist if they are not working towards progress on all fronts? Example being very visible for pride, but not showing up for BLM movements.
I think that is it's an interesting question, especially when you're talking about the theater of activism. There are people that, they come to activism for different reasons. I said this in a lot of my personal posts that, activism is something that is sometimes a lifetime dedication. It's not something that you get resolved within, a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day process. It could take months, it could take years, it could take a lifetime. And it's constantly evolving and growing. And even if you are in one school or one scope of activism, you still are constantly learning. So answering that question directly, you know, the hope is that with anyone, that they would continue to try to educate themselves, continue to try to be open and receptive, and you know, again, you know, it's tough because I don't like to go into the scope of like shaming other activists because I don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know, you know, what they're having behind closed doors. If we are peers, we'll have a side conversation. But I think overall, a lot of people are trying to figure out their space in all of this. And again, this is, you know, unprecedented times. We have social media. We have a lot of things that, you know, weren't around through other generations of activism. And we have a lot of technology that is up to the minute. So that leaves a lot of people with confirmed biases. It leaves a lot of people to make assumptions. It leaves a lot of people to go down their own rabbit holes. So, you know, what is the best course for all of us? I think dialogue is a good way to start, but having an open mind and open heart when engaging somebody, don't come in guns blazing, and be open to having a conversation that, you know, whether that you both could possibly learn from each other's perspective. The goal is that we have to continue to educate each other. And that's the best thing I can sit there and say, is that we have to continue to be open and receptive to educate each other too as well. Does anybody else want to add anything? Because I don't want to feel like I'm running with this.
Yeah, Thomas, I'd like to add one thing. I'd kind of like to go back to the comment I made a while ago. You asked about what that activism looks like for us as individuals. And I think for me, I think that the comment I made kind of answers maybe this question is, you know, that activism looks different for everyone. I will be honest and then say that when it comes to LGBTQ community, when it comes to Pride throughout the year, not just in June, I'm a very visible individual. Laura is very visible. I mean, we can attest to that for each other. We do it in our companies, we do it outside of our companies. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't have signs and I wasn't marching down the streets for the Black Lives Matter movement. I was not posting on social media. You know, I wasn't doing all of these things that a lot of people were doing or thought that I should have been doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't fully accept the movement. Just because my social media was silent doesn't mean that I'm not reflecting in my own way. I'll be honest with you, it's been, as a white male, it's been challenging to find the right words. Where everybody may have lost sleep because they were outside protesting, I lost sleep laying in my bed thinking about these things, right? Thinking about, you know, why can't we all get along? Why, you know, why are we having these discussions? Why are we having to have these discussions? You know, A, B, C, D, all of the stuff that we're all thinking. And so that's where I have been. And I don't know that that's the right answer. I honestly wish I would have been maybe a little bit more vocal with my opinions around this particular matter, but I didn't know the words. I couldn't find the words to say. Some people don't think that's right. I have been called out for that specific question. You know, how can you be visible for LGBTQ folks and not for Black people? And it's not that I'm not here to support them. I just, you know, I've struggled with that. And I would appreciate, you know, I mean, Thomas, you and I have had conversations now about this. I mean, I think that dialogue is important because maybe not everybody does know what to say. And it's not that they don't want to support the movement. They just might not necessarily know how. So I think there's something to be said about that.
Thank you, Gage. Does anybody else want to add anything in that scope before we take on the next question? No? All right. Well, we're answering some heavy questions here, guys. This is like some Oprah level type stuff. Luckily, there's been no tears yet. So let's
So we do have two more questions. The first one is, what would you say to someone having to have conversations with their racially intolerant families?
Panelists,
I can go ahead and answer that one because I've had many. So I think it just all has to come from a place of trying to understand how they're thinking also, because no one wants to be told that their way of thinking is wrong, no matter how wrong it is. So I think just going at it with a place of just trying to understand why they're thinking the way that they're thinking, and then just simply breaking it down into the simplest of like ways to understand, kind of how KB said, like, yeah, all lives matter, all lives matter, all lives matter. But if your house is on fire, the fire department's not going to come put that one out. So just putting it into like simpler terms, I think is always helpful, or analogies, I guess. And just, I would say, just trying to make the situation as human as possible, because I believe at the core, everyone wants to do what's right and wants to, I just think, just breaking it down and just taking the time, also setting time apart. Like if you only have 15 minutes, don't bust out into this deep conversation. Make sure that you set the time down that you have to actually talk and have a conversation with them.
Anybody else like to add?
I think I need to hear the question one more time.
So the question was, what would you say to someone having conversations with their racially intolerant families?
And I'd also like to segue that too as well, because I know, like, you know, Sky and KB make, you know, within the Black community too as well, you know, we are having that same dialogue in terms of acceptance of the trans community too as well. And, you know, that same energy of that intolerance that, you know, I feel like our white allies and, you know, people within the white community are having with their relatives. I feel like we as well are having that same dialogue within our own scope of like saying like, look, we have to really acknowledge the fact that, you know, Black trans lives do matter, that the LGBTQ people of color matter within our own community too as well. So I would like to sort of layer that on top of that, on as well as what Louis said too, is if anybody wants to answer that part.
I don't have that much discussion with my family in regards to, you know, like LGBTQ, trans, you know, all that. I don't know, it just never is really talked about as much. I feel like they're accepting, but still kind of, you know, ignorant to certain topics. So I try to, you know, navigate the conversation in a different direction. But I think now just with my family, but just, you know, just in general, we just need to have that open dialogue and not be afraid to say the wrong thing, because like you said, Thomas, we're all learning in this process. I'm learning, even though, you know, with all my high emotions, and trying to make sure I still say the right thing and try to make sure I don't take things too personal, because, you know, our white allies, they will not get it, you know, right the first time or the second time or third time. But as long as they're actively trying, you know, that just means a lot. So, and I'm trying to work on that with my family and trying to be more open with them about, you know, trans. I don't think I've ever spoken to them about any matter about trans lives, but hopefully, you know, we can get to that conversation. So it's just all baby steps for everybody. So like Gage, you said you know, you don't know what to say, but, you know, saying something's better, you know, not saying anything at all. But, you know, we're all learning. So don't be afraid to say the wrong thing, because I guarantee you, my behind's gonna mess up here and there. So I'm not gonna say the right thing. And we just all just need to have an inclusive conversations, and it needs to be more of what we're doing now, more open discussion, and people not taking things too critical, and don't take it too personal. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my
And I think those conversations are uncomfortable, but I think it's good to be uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, it's like room for you to grow and room for others to grow. And so I think just, yeah, being bold and just being willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and to make yourself uncomfortable in order just to grow yourself and also the person that you're talking with.
I'd like to make one call. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, and just even saying like, what can I do? Like just asking that question, that's even like, that's you taking that initiative to being like, hey, I'm here, I want to learn, I don't know what to say, so, teach me, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of make one comment kind of specific to the question that was asked about racially intolerant families. I come from a very small town in Northeast Texas. Most of my family, is scattered throughout kind of the 4 states region here, all from the South. And I have a lot of really old family. I mean, when I was born, I had a great-great-grandmother. So we had 5 generations. And I think what's important, because I've had these conversations about certain things with family. I've had family members make comments about LGBTQ. I've had family members make many a comment about Black people, and they're not great comments, And so I've had to have these conversations, and it is a struggle. I think the one thing I would maybe have to say from my perspective of that is, I have to recognize that some of these family members come from a different time. That's not a total excuse. And I don't want to allow them to use that as a crutch, but I think recognizing that the conversation looks a little bit different, maybe with my, great uncle than it does with my mom, or than it does with my cousin who's my age. I mean, I think those conversations all look different. And I think recognizing that helps a little bit. When I came out to, my parents and, having these conversations about LGBTQ, it's like I was terrified and I didn't know how they were going to react. And yes, we went through some challenging waters, but here we are now, with a great relationship. And so I think these other conversations can be similar. Maybe we don't agree on things right in the beginning, but I think as you kind of begin to express your feelings and they start to kind of acknowledge that, I think those conversations will get a little bit easier. And you know what? If they don't ever come around, then they just don't. I'm from the country, so we like to say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I can say all day long, hey, great uncle, hey, grandpa, hey, so-and-so, whoever it is I'm talking to, ABC, whatever. And they're either going to get it or they're not. And they're going to get it on their own time a lot of times as well. So just recognize that if you're spending a lot of time talking to the same person about the same thing over and over and over, and it's just really not getting through, then maybe you move on to the next person. And maybe you come back to that person later on. But, recognizing that sometimes you just can't get through the skull. It just depends. So
our final question, and then we're going to wrap it up. Gage.
Yep. So last question. Do you feel that among the current struggles, we are actually shifting or have shifted over recent years to be more inclusive and tolerant of minorities? So I guess maybe, among everything that's happening, do you feel we have shifted over recent years to actually be more inclusive and tolerant of minorities?
Honestly, I don't think really the shift has happened until now. I think, the Black community, and it's not even just the Black community, obviously, like other minorities, gays, lesbians, trans, all of that are starting to take a stand to the inequality that we are all facing. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I think COVID is a great crutch for people to be out protesting and to, educate themselves and to post on their social medias and all that. But I think the change is starting now. It's little, but it's, I mean, from what I've like noticed, I think it's really, really, really starting now.
Yeah, for me, I'm a model here in DFW. That's how me and Thomas have, connected. And for me, I feel like it hasn't, I'll say it's kind of shifted, but there's a lot of work to be done. I just still feel like companies with diversity, they're just trying to check off a box and move forward. Do we have enough Black people? Yes. Okay, Asian? Okay, yes. That's just what I've been experiencing. Being in college and coming out of college, that's trying to get a job and seeing like I have the same credentials as my white counterpart, but they get numerous job opportunities and I'm just kind of like stuck. And I just feel like there's just a lot of work to be done, and including in modeling too. White models get paid more than Black models, and my agency has to clean it up and try to not make it seem like, okay, this is not a race thing, but baby, it's a race thing. So it's a lot that that needs to change and happen. And like with job applications, if I'm like, they preach about all lives matter, well, why do I have to check off if I'm Black or white or mixed or any of that? So I think that topic has been brought up a lot too. So yeah.
I think, just closing it out, I think what we have to understand is that we have to move past the course of tolerance and get to a space of acceptance. Tolerance is something that, you kind of stay in your own individualized box and you sit there and you say, well, I'll just let you be you. Acceptance means that I'm actually inviting you to be in fellowship with me. So I think as a society, we have to unlearn this tolerance mentality and get towards a space of acceptance, because acceptance means that we're in a space of where we're trying to invite each other in to each other's folds and spaces. And so on that note, I would like to thank all of you guys for joining us for this Pride and Activism panel discussion. This is one of our most involved panel discussions, and also we got a lot discussed, and I definitely want to thank you guys, for those of you that are currently, whether it be within the LGBTQ plus community, or whether it be within Black Lives Matter, or whether it be with the situation going on in Yemen, or any type of social issues that are going on. I encourage you guys to all stay involved. I encourage you guys to take care of your mental health, because mental health is very crucial in circumstances like this. If you are trying to be supportive of someone, remain supportive of them too as well, but check in on their mental health. Everybody's dealing with a lot of stuff. Also, we have a pandemic going on still, very much so. So, we have a lot of things happening at the same time, not just social issues, but also health issues. So again, I'm encouraging everyone to stay active, stay involved, keep your energy clean, and again, take care of that mental health.